The sub-4-meter segment has seen a resurgence of new, and today we have with us the new...
Wait a minute. Are we seriously going to feature this segment again?
Yeah.
In fact, the last time didn't we use the same frame as well?
Yeah, two of the best sub-4-meter sedans.
And every time we pitch the Dzire against something, they just don't seem to match up.
Which brings us to the jack of all trades.
The Dzire wins this competition by not just beating the other four, it wins this by bringing a whole new level of sophistication into the mix.
Well, that's true, but today we have with us the all-new Ford Aspire, and all these three sedans are running their petrol engines, not the diesel.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so for our viewers who still prefer their cars to be powered by the pure fuel, do these more refined, naturally aspirated engines change things up a little?
Let's go find out. And because one of the primary reasons for upgrading to these cars is the cabin experience, let's start on the inside. Features-wise, each of these cars packs quite a punch. In each of their top spec variants, they all have climate control, touchscreen infotainment systems, steering mounted controls, push button start, rear cameras, 2 airbags and ABS with EBD. So they do give you that premium experience when stepping up from a hatchback.
Ford hasn't made many changes to this dashboard, but the inclusion of a floating touchscreen display has spiced things up a little and has made this cabin a better place to be. The layout also looks nice, but the quality of plastics isn't as good as the other two and makes this cabin feel less premium. And while the big center console looks nice, but it leaves very little room for your feet in the footwell. Plus, what's the point of having a push button start-stop if you have to unlock the doors with your keys? But it has a few tricks up its sleeve as well. For example, this automatic day-night IRVM is a unique feature among the three. It also gets automatic headlamps and this sync system, which is very responsive and has a stunning display. The showstopper though has to be the safety kit on offer. The Aspire gets 6 airbags, which compared to the 2 airbags of the other two is a big step up in terms of safety. Yes?
6 airbags, huh?
Yes.
Do you get cruise control? Yes, 6 airbags is probably more useful a feature than cruise control, but it's one of the features that sets the Amaze apart from the other two. Moving on to other things that have improved on the Amaze is this new DigiPad 2 system. It's much more fluid than DigiPad 1 and it's Android based, so you can actually customize the screen to suit the apps you use the most. It also features navigation, which the Dzire does as well, but since all three come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you have access to Google Maps as well. One thing it does miss out though on is automatic headlamps, which the other two get. And while it doesn't boast of any more standout features over the other two, there's something pleasing about the design of everything in the Honda cabin. Little details like how the steering is soft to touch, or just the way the information is displayed on the MID, which I think is probably one of the best out of the three. It just makes you feel like you're in a more expensive car.
So you like the cabin of the Amaze, huh? But is it as premium as the Dzire? If we are talking premium, then this is the cabin to be in. While both of those also feature dual-tone interiors, but Maruti has cleverly used a lot of beige in the cabin and on the dashboard to free up a better sense of space. You also get forward inserts on the dashboard and on the steering wheel to give it a more upmarket feel. And then there are some clever touches, like Maruti has scooped out the dashboard to free up more space for your knees and keep them happy. And while the Dzire might not get an automatic IRVM like the Aspire or cruise control like the Amaze, but this does get LED projector headlamps, which is unique in this segment. Also, the steering wheel is wrapped in this nice leather which feels really premium to touch, and the center tunnel is tilted towards the driver, which honestly makes me feel special.
Driver, zara AC badao. While Nabil may be feeling special up front, it's in the rear where the sub-4-meter sedan segment really manages to boggle the mind, particularly when it comes to the sheer space they have on offer. If you're moving up from a mid-sized hatchback, the experience in the rear seat in any of these three cars is quite nice. The Dzire is probably one that has the most practical legroom. In fact, I can even stretch my leg out under the front seat. And that front seat has been set to my position. I'm 5'10" and I still have so much of room behind myself. And speaking of the seats, the Dzire seats are nicely contoured and they are a good balance between firm and soft, so they should be comfortable over a long distance. And while the Dzire has the most shoulder room out of the three, this armrest intrudes into passenger space and that inhibits its ability to seat 3 in the back. For 2 people though, this is probably one of the most comfortable cars of the lot. This armrest doesn't have any tabs, that's one complaint I have, and so you got to stick your fingers in and pull it out. And as an armrest it works quite well. There are 2 cup holders here, but if there's something in those cup holders, then it's a little awkward to place your hand. It fits 2 full-size 1-litre bottles in both doors, and there's a 12-volt socket to charge all your electronic doodads. But one standout feature is AC vents for both rear seat passengers. The Dzire sports the most balanced suspension setup of the 3. It may not be the softest, but over everything we encountered on the test, it was fairly composed. It's also fairly composed around corners, and that means you're not tossed around a lot in the back. If there was one complaint we did have about the suspension, it's that sharper bumps like expansion gaps and level changes in the surface are heard more than they are felt. We're in the Amaze now, and while I obviously don't have as much knee room as I did in the Dzire, I can stretch my legs out quite nicely in here as well. And when it comes to the seats, they're nicely contoured like the Dzire as well. And they're probably the softest of the lot, and that makes them really nice and comfortable. But what I would really have liked is to have an adjustable headrest, because this is just not happening. And then we come to the armrest. Like the Dzire, this too doesn't have a tab. Come on Maruti and Honda, why can't you just give us a tab to pull this down? You got to stick your fingers in again. One of the nicest armrests. It's really long, and when you have something in there, you can still rest your arm fairly comfortably. It also has full 1-litre size bottle holders in both doors, and there's another bottle holder in the front. There's also a 12-volt power socket to charge all your electronics. In the Amaze, the doors are also scooped out quite nicely, and though these armrests are quite substantial, there's a lot of wiggle room for me. This gives it the ability to seat 3 in more comfort than in the Dzire. The Amaze is the softest sprung car in the test, and in town and over the smaller stuff, it remains nice and composed. But at higher speeds and over larger bumps like potholes and maybe big speed breakers, it does tend to get a little unsettled and it takes some time to settle back down. And also if you're on the highway and you are fully loaded, you can expect some bounciness to creep into the ride as it takes time to settle down after you've hit a bump. It's also one of the noisiest cabins in the test. And though it's a big step up from its predecessor, road noise and engine noise does creep in quite a bit. This cabin is quieter, and while it is a toss-up between the Dzire and the Aspire as to which one is quieter, they're both quieter than the Amaze for sure. When it comes to legroom, it doesn't give you that palatial feeling like in the Dzire, but it's more than practical. What I can't do is stretch my feet out because the bottom part of the front seat hits my shin. Coming to storage spaces, this one has a tab, and this armrest, this actually goes all the way there, and it practically feels like I'm sharing cup holders with the front 2 passengers. There's also one shared bottle holder for both the rear passengers, and the doors only house speakers. The seats in the Aspire are probably the flattest and firmest of the lot. Even though there's a visual contouring of the rear seats, they feel firm and flat. And while on paper the Aspire is not the widest car in the rear, these scooped out armrests and flat bench make it the best at seating 3 passengers in the rear seats. The Aspire falls in a middle ground between the Amaze and the Dzire when it comes to ride quality. In the city, it handles the smaller stuff fairly well, and even larger bumps and like speed breakers or potholes are handled better than the Amaze. Where it falls behind the other 2 a little bit is through corners, where roll is not quite as predictable and mid-corner bumps tend to unsettle the cabin a bit more.
If you are buying one of these cars, chances are that you are going to be driving them. and not sitting at the back like Uncle Alan. The new Ford Aspire comes with a 1.2-litre Dragon petrol engine. This is the only 3-cylinder unit here, and it does feel so, as the 3-cylinder thumb does stand out in this company. Subtle vibrations do start to creep in from the floorboard as you climb through the revs, and the engine note also isn't as raspy as the other two. When it comes to performance, we love this engine in the freestyle, but here in the Aspire, Ford has made the gearing taller, which has diluted the experience. It takes a fair amount of time to climb through speeds, and so much so that inside the city you will have to downshift for quick overtakes. The 4200 roll-on in 4th gear of the Aspire is 1.5 seconds slower than the other two, but a plus of the taller gearing is the mileage. At 15.9 kilometers per litre inside the city, the Aspire is the most fuel-efficient car of the three. And when we talk about performance, the expectations are always high from Honda's i-VTEC. But of late, our experience with the 1.2-litre engine has not been so great, especially after driving the WRV. And here in the Amaze, though the gearing is still tall, it does feel more lively than the Aspire and does offer a better city drivability. And although the performance from the engine does feel adequate, the driving experience on the other hand is taken down a notch by the slight vagueness in the steering wheel, a notchy gearbox, and a slightly heavy clutch compared to the other two cars. But the biggest surprise here is this, the Dzire. The least powerful car here is the quickest, feels the most liveliest to drive, and is on par in terms of fuel efficiency with the other two. The engine here even offers the quickest roll-on times, both in the 3rd and the 4th gear, which makes overtaking in the city fairly simple. This is because the Dzire gets the shortest gearing of the three, which helps it climb through the revs quickly. Helping matters further is the slick shifting gearbox and the well-weighted feedback from the steering wheel, which makes driving a pleasant experience. So overall, if you are a keen driver, the Maruti is where you would want to be.
Finally, let's take a step out and look at them. The Dzire is the better looking sedan of the three because of its more accurate proportions. The all LED headlamps and DRLs not only look like from a segment above, but were also the best on the drive home after the late shoot. Move to the side and the Dzire also gets the best looking two-tone alloy wheels, and the LED guide lights in the tail lamps are just the right finishing touch. The Amaze on the other hand also stands out for its sharp features and lines. There's no doubt that it's a big improvement on the previous generation, even if it is a little polarizing. Ironically, the newest car here is the one which looks the oldest, and that's because the Aspire is a mere facelift, and a mild one at that, whereas the other two have had the advantage of a whole generation update. And what's even more ironic is that when it debuted in 2015, the Aspire was the first sub-4 meter sedan that actually looked like it was designed as a sedan from the ground up. It gets plain Jane wheels and no LED DRLs. A more comprehensive facelift would have given it more clout in this battle.
It's been an interesting day with these three cars, and I think we have a winner.
Just say it, Nabil, just say it.
Okay, fine. Yes, the Dzire is the best car here. It offers the most comprehensive package along with a proper premium interior and a big feature list as well. Even when it comes to drive, it offers the best experience with the engine performance, steering feedback and the gearbox. To top it all off, it looks the best as well.
That's true, but at 8 lakhs, the Dzire is the most expensive of the three. And for someone upgrading from a mid-size hatchback, that may be just a little too much. The Aspire is 76,000 less and packs in a lot of features, especially when it comes to safety.
True, but that price deficit does show in the cabin experience as it fails to provide the same kind of premiumness as the other two. The Honda might miss out on some standout features, but it does offer on the feel-good factor along with a premium cabin. And not to forget, it is the only one of the three to offer cruise control.
Right.
I just can't get over the sound deadening in the Honda.
But the Aspire, the cabin, I just can't get over the quality of it.
Well, at least this has cruise control.
Yeah, but airbags, 6 airbags.
ठीक है, लेकिन इसका keyless entry किधर है यार?
तो आप cruise control city में कहाँ use करोगे?